Quite shocking in the scale at which the Zuma slate won the top six positions of the ANC. And of course, there was expectation in some quarters that the contestation would, to some degree, perhaps be in the sort of 55-45 region or 60-40 margins, as it were. Well, it wasn't to be. It would go up to about 75%, at least to 25 to the other slate. And it was in the position of Deputy President that perhaps the biggest margin was. That's where Cyril Ramaphosa was elected. Now, let's tell you what the numbers were. Cyril Ramaphosa, out of the accredited delegates, was able to amass a total of 3,018 votes. This is in comparison to the other two contestants for the position. Those were Matthew Phosa and Tokyo Sexwale. Matthew Phosa got 470 and Tokyo Sexwale got 463. So Cyril Ramaphosa got 75% of the votes that were cast for the position of Deputy President. So another very, very, very strong win for the Zuma slate in this particular contest for the position of Deputy President of the ANC. It was, in fact, the highest number when you compare with the other numbers. The margins were not so much, but the presidency position, Jacob Zuma got 2,983 itself. Sort of about 17 and 18, about 35 of those votes. But in the deputy presidency position, Cyril Ramaphosa won quite comprehensively. Well, he had a rousing and rapturous welcome to the position of deputy president of the ANC. Among the delegates here, it was very clear that Ramaphosa was a very popular choice for that position. Let's take a look at what happened after it was confirmed that he would be deputy president of the ANC.
For the position of Deputy President, Comrade Matthew Phosa received 470 votes. Comrades, please. Please, comrades, let's show. Thank you. Let's observe the rules of the Electoral Commission. Thank you. The second nominee, Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa, received 3,018 votes. Comrades, I'd like to repeat that. Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa received 3,018 votes. Comrade Tokyo Sexwale received 463 votes. There were 13 spoiled ballots and 13 abstentions. Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa is the successful candidate for Deputy President. Thank you.
All right, so that's confirmation of the result of that election, which saw Cyril Ramaphosa ascending to the position of Deputy President of the ANC. Sipho Siepe is political analyst. He joins us this morning. That was not a surprise win.
Oh, no, with Cyril, it was not a surprise. I mean, you have to understand that Cyril brings a lot of history into this position. The first is that he was the organizer of the National Union of Mine Workers and the most effective Secretary General of that organization. He became the Secretary General of the ANC, and it was at the time when the ANC was very strong. One must also remember that the ANC lost its stature during the time when there was a contestation, and it was during the time of Ndate Mbeki and Ndate Motlanthe. If you remember the report that Ndate Motlanthe gave in Polokwane, he was talking about an organization that is in disarray. So Cyril gave Ndate Motlanthe a very strong organization only for it to be in disarray. And what we see now is a debris of what happened in Polokwane. So his return brings that level of experience. But there's also been a support that comes from business. So from the perspective of the ANC and its character of being a multi-class, what Cyril brings is a person who's an all-rounder. One hopes that members of the ANC see somebody who would be sensitized to the plight of workers as a former organizer of labor, but they also see somebody who also would be sensitive to the challenges that come with globalization and with business and all that.
In spite of Marikana, because when one looks at some of the conversations on Twitter quite aggressively voicing this issue about Marikana and Cyril's involvement with lawmen, is that an Achilles heel? Is there something perhaps that might just be a little bit problematic for him in this position?
Well, I think Cyril was heavily misrepresented Marikana. And of course, one could be critical of what role has he played as a boss. And but the association with him on the tragedy that ultimately came was misplaced, because what people did was to distort his almost disquiet that even before other people were killed, there was already a tragedy that was unfolding. And all he was saying was that people, when you have a labor dispute and it ends with about 10 people dying, it cannot be right. And what we need to do is that the police must take a firm hand. But he was not directing the police to go and kill people. But this is how people have characterized it, and I don't think it was actually fair, because if you look at what Cyril said, the COSATU also said the same thing, both in the province and as well as at the national level. The other political parties also.
But his position just at lawmen at the time, it just raises a different kind of feeling, and perhaps at some level that's where the ire is. But just talk a little bit about, you say he's an all-rounder organizer, has been in business. There's also been reports that markets have responded favorably to him becoming ANC deputy president. Why is he so popular? Why is he so popular in the markets and, as you describe, in labor and within the grassroots of the ANC?
Well, I think, like I said, he's an all-rounder. You're talking about somebody who has gone into business and has been successful. So what people are saying is that they've been concerned that the ANC seems to have been deploying people who are more activist and whose credentials do not seem to also bring the other business insight or economic insight into the government. So they see that as a plus. But of course, you could also say that the COSATU has every reason to worry, because the wages that people were getting and are getting in non-min does not, like you say, project him in a favorable light. But I do think that he's in a space where he can be influenced, and I think all formations and all classes have a role to play in making sure that they direct the ANC to respond to their own interest, hence the whole notion of the multi-class organization.
Okay, talk a little bit about the Zuma Motlanthe president deputy president relationship character, and then what you would expect the Zuma Ramaphosa president deputy president character and relationship.
Well, Zuma and Motlanthe have the same characteristics of being very tolerant. And to the best of my knowledge, when Cyril was the Secretary General of the ANC, he was also a very impatient person. He was a manager. So one hopes that the combination of the two would be bringing a bit of diversity. I understand that the Zuma and the Motlanthe, they share the same experience of prison, the same experience of being activists on the ground, and they being older. They represent a different generation. So what we have here is a generational mix between Motlanthe and Cyril. But you also have people who have been located in different experiences. Zuma has never been in business. Motlanthe has never been in business. Cyril has been in business. So you expect that that hybrid might be able to strengthen the organization. But also, Cyril,
ideologically, do they feed into one another? Ideologically, do they agree? Do they dovetail?
No, I don't think that. To me, I'd rather that they should have a diversity, because that's where enrichment comes in. But when you are of the same cloth, there isn't a richness that comes with the different colors that come into that cloth. So I think the richness of the ANC will be in its diversity, and it's very important that when President Zuma assumes this next stage, he begins to make sure that there's an infusion of new perspectives that will come from Cyril.
Sipho Siepe is a political analyst. Let's take a break.